Welcome back to Murder with the Missus. I'm Darren.
And I'm Amy. And today we're going to tell you about Meagan Jackson.
Don't forget to smash that like button. Check out the description for the links of all of our podcast platforms, Cash App, and Buy Me a Coffee. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to tell your friends. Do not forget to tell your friends because they deserve to see us too. So don't be rude.
That's just rude. I like that.
Nice to see y'all back.
Hey, y'all.
Of course, I don't see you, but hi.
We have little stick figures dancing around in our head.
Mm-hmm.
That's you.
The audience.
You're all in your underwear.
Yeah.
Okay, each one of the cases that we cover have their own burden of how to prove someone accused of murder actually did it. And I'll tell you that this one intrigued me because the accused people in this case were a deputy coroner and a body transporter. So my immediate thought was that these two people have the means that the general public do not to conceal. It would not be weird if they get caught with a dead body in their car. They have access to a crematorium. You know, it's things like that that would make it easier for them to get away with murder. And they probably thought that too. So I watched the trial of Meagan Jackson, who was the body transporter that we mentioned. And this trial just ended, so we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
40-year-old Meagan Jackson was in a relationship with 46-year-old Gregory Rice, a 16-year relationship, and they had 4 kids together. Greg worked in construction and maintenance, and as we know, Meagan worked for a body transport company that was contracted by the Horry County Coroner's Office in South Carolina. Meagan and Greg's relationship ended, but he was still very active in the kids' lives. At this time, in November of 2019, Meagan's mom was going to co-sign and help Meagan get a house. You know, 'cause they broke up and she's got to have somewhere to go. But her mother ended up passing away before that happened.
Damn. So she lost her boyfriend and her mom in the same month?
Bam, bam.
Wow.
Yeah. And she's got to find a house. Now she's lost a house. Like, it's bad. Her half-brother said Meagan started acting differently during this time. Lots of loss between the relationship, the mom, the house. She wasn't in a good place. Now, when she started the transporting job, it was because the guy who was doing it had become the deputy coroner for Horry County. This is Christopher Dontel. Chris trained Meagan, and they saw each other a lot on the job. Fast forward to Friday, October 2nd of 2020. Greg leaves work about 8 p.m., and this is the last time he is seen. Meagan always made him pick up the kids from her, but that weekend, she actually took the kids to his apartment because she had to go to work. Because as a body transporter, you're on call. So when someone passes away, she would get a call to come and get them and take them where they needed to go. So you never know when you're going to get that call. But Greg wasn't at his apartment. So she took the kids to her boss's house to watch them while she went to work, and then later went back to Greg's apartment. When he still wasn't there, she called the police to do a welfare check because Greg wasn't answering the door. He wasn't in the apartment, and there was no sign of a struggle in there or anything. But on Monday, when there was still no response from Greg, Meagan filed a missing persons report. But things weren't adding up from the start. Meagan was portraying Greg as a degenerate drug user, according to the prosecutor. But everyone else in Greg's life said he was a homebody who just went to work and took care of his kids.
So did they start looking for him?
Right away. Like, so Monday when they called, they immediately were like, let's start looking. They were canvassing areas. They brought out bloodhounds, but they didn't find any sign of Greg. Now, Donna Sue Stoles had catfished her whole life at the Little Petey River. Catfishing is where you go out and you set lines, like fishing lines with hooks and bait that you hang from low tree branches. You set them about an hour before dark in different areas and then go back throughout the night to check the lines to see if you caught any catfish. Donna Sue and her family do this regularly, like every other weekend. So at this time, on November 7th into the 8th of 2020, the family had gotten together that day for Donna Sue's grandma's funeral. When they got back from the funeral, they decided to do some catfishing to clear their heads. When they come up to a spot where they were going to set their third line, a smell hit Donna Sue that was so bad it made her throw up. They shine their light towards the shoreline and they see a tarp up against a tree in the water. Debris gets caught up on things all the time in the river, so they just leave it and go back up the hill. But she told her brother that something wasn't right. She'd never smelled a smell like that before. And they'd been around, decaying animals and fishy stuff like their whole lives. And this was different. So they go back to that spot and they decide to get a little closer. But the smell made them both get sick. So they aborted that plan and went back up the hill. But it was nagging at Donna Sue. She could not let it go. So a third time, they go back out to that spot and they made themselves go all the way up to that tarp.
And it was a body.
It was a body. They didn't know at the time because of the state of the body, but it was later identified as Greg Rice, wrapped in a blue tarp, zip tied at both ends, with a ratchet strap connected to a cinder block to weigh him down. He had been shot 5 times with a .22 caliber gun. So let's get into the investigation and what came out in court. The police had already suspected Meagan and Chris had something to do with Greg's disappearance. They were identified as suspects a couple of weeks after Greg was last seen. Meagan and Chris had been having an affair. Chris was married to a school teacher and had 2 kids of his own. When Meagan's mom passed away, Meagan got an inheritance. So she actually moved into a house in the same neighborhood that Chris lived in with his family. She spent a lot of time at their house. She made friends with Chris's wife, Erica. She bought them groceries and expensive presents randomly. Her and Eric even talked about being business partners, or Erica talked about being business partners and opening a summer camp, which was Erica's dream. She gained Erica's trust, and it wasn't very suspicious with her and Chris being on call all the time for death calls that they're off like at random hours throughout the day and night. So they're not suspecting an affair. They're thinking that they're just working, but they were having an affair. Chris says that the affair started because one night he was drinking at an establishment he used to go to, and Meagan was there. She said she needed to ask him a question before he left, and he thought, okay, maybe this is work related. So he went outside and she had him get into her work van. She took him to a remote part of the parking lot and asked him, "You ever cheated on your wife?" He said no, and she said, "Well, you're about to." Lady, so forward. But he pushed her off and told her no. So she made fun of him for the next few days about it. Like, I can't believe you turned this down. Nobody's ever turned this down. Anyways, he said that when she made a move on him again, he just let it happen. And then it became a regular thing.
So, I mean, sounds like, she sounds kind of like a creeper.
Yeah, she sounds like the creeper. So they start having an affair. And then she moved into the neighborhood and befriends his wife. Gross. Basically, she interjected herself in their lives. And we know this story because he testified against her at her trial. And you can see that on our cam or on our thumbnail. That's him testifying. And that's the face that she is making at him while he's talking. Like, it's so funny. But we're getting the story straight from his mouth. And keep in mind, it's coming straight from his mouth. So, grain of salt. He had been arrested November 11th of 2020, right after they found Greg's body, and he bonded out. But his bond was revoked in September of 2021 because he was contacting Meagan, which he was not allowed to do. So he's actually been in custody since then. He went on trial in December of 2024, but according to the prosecutor, right when the prosecutor in his case went to stand up to do their opening statement, Chris stood up and said he would talk. He ended up pleading guilty to conspiracy and accessory after the fact in hopes of getting a lighter sentence to testify against Meagan.
And he didn't have a deal in place?
No.
Wow.
No. They made a point while he was testifying to show that he had no agreement currently in place with the state. But both were arrested and both were charged for murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy. So they actually took his murder charge away. So I guess it worked, which automatically gives him a lighter sentence, of course. I will also throw in here that Meagan, at the time the investigation was going on, had additional charges based on what police found when they executed a search warrant on her house after her arrest. This was for child neglect. The warrant shows that her 13-year-old daughter weighed only 50 pounds and says that she was only fed 1 time a day. The 3 youngest kids were locked in their rooms with keypad locks on the doors that Meagan would take the batteries out of to disable.
Golly.
There were no doorknobs on any of their doors, and the window slides had been manipulated so that they wouldn't open. But she also had padlocks on the windows too, so even if she hadn't done one thing to disable the window, she had another thing that would keep them from opening it. So the kids say that they would have to urinate in whatever containers they could find in their rooms. It's fucking tragic. But she's on trial for Greg, so we'll focus on him and just hope that the kids are able to get the help they need. And that just let me know what kind of person we're dealing with here. So that's why I threw it in. It also leads to another point in the case. Meagan found out that she was pregnant with Chris's baby in late August of 2020. So she was about to have another kid. And this was about to blow things up. Mm-hmm. They both seemed in agreement that abortion was the route that they were choosing, according to their text messages. And Chris's wife, Erica, was getting her own text messages from an anonymous sender.
Greg?
Well, Meagan assumed that they were coming from Greg. And Erica knew it had to be someone close to them because Meagan's name is spelled Meagan, so it's not the typical spelling. Now, these text messages that she was getting was spelling the name correctly. So Erica figured it had to be someone who was well acquainted with her to know how to spell it. And these texts were telling her about the affair and that Meagan was pregnant. But Chris and Meagan are telling Erica that this isn't true. And Greg is he's just mad. He's just starting shit. But it would come out in court that these actually look like they came from Meagan using a free texting app. So the images that were sent to Erica of flight information for a trip to Florida was the same image found on Meagan's phone. It's things like that.
Yeah.
A package of printouts. So somebody had printed out all the text messages between Meagan and Chris, put them in a box and shipped them, or put them in a package and shipped them to Erica. Chris actually intercepted that package and opened it up and saw what it was. So she didn't never see what it was. But all of these images were created on Meagan's phone. So they're able to point and say she was the anonymous sender, not Greg. She was just trying to make everybody think it was Greg.
Gotcha.
Now, let's take a minute here to hear from today's sponsor.
Is your washer and dryer pushing your buttons instead of the other way around? Make a clean getaway before you spin out of control.
For sheets and giggles, go ahead and call My Laundry Solutions today at 800-535-4411 if you live in an apartment. We know you're pressed for time, so you can also tumble on over to mylaundrysolutions.com, which is available 24/7. They are a wonderful company to do business with.
No credit check, free installations, all for about $1 a day.
That's sensational.
Give them a call. You won't be disappointed. Give them a shout.
Yeah, yell at them. Call and be like, hey, can I get a washer and dryer?
Or not.
Okay.
Or, don't yell at them. Just say, hey.
Ask like a human.
Need a washer and dryer.
Can I get one of them?
Yeah. Can I get one for $1 a day?
Murder with the Missus said I could. Now, there was quite a bit of digital evidence that came out in this case against Meagan and Chris. You know how we love some digital evidence. So I'll tell you the timeline of what it all shows.
You can't get away with much these days.
No, you cannot.
I mean,
not with this technology.
No, especially with AI and all this crap coming out now.
It's going to get worse.
Man, it's going to get way worse.
So on October 2nd, surveillance footage from the gate of the neighborhood shows Meagan leave at 6:16 p.m. And Chris was right behind her, leaving at 6:20. A little down the road at the Lewis Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve, a game camera shows them both enter the preserve at 6:26 and they both leave at 6:40. Prosecutors say that they were there for target practice. And this wasn't the first time that they were. They'd been there a couple days before that as well. But Chris says he didn't shoot a gun that day, only Meagan did. He was too hungry, he couldn't focus. So they left there, and then you see them on surveillance at Abuelo's, which is a Mexican restaurant. Then at 9:14, her phone puts her at the funeral home. Chris says that she told him that she left her glasses there, so they went there to get them. Now, while they're there at around 9:45, Chris can hear Meagan talking to someone. According to phone records, she had called Greg for a 2-minute and 17-second conversation. She tells Chris that she needs to go see Greg. She had been claiming abuse from Greg during this time, so she usually had someone with her if she had to interact with him. Chris said he didn't want to go, but he was the only one with her, so he drove her in her van. They had left his Explorer in the shopping center parking lot where Abuelo's was. So they drive to Greg's apartment. There's another brief call to Greg at 9:58 p.m. that only lasted 13 seconds. This is also when Meagan's van is caught on a license plate reader at the complex. The van is then seen leaving the complex about 6 or 7 minutes later.
I mean, that's not a lot of time.
Not a lot, but apparently they didn't need a lot. According to Chris's testimony, Meagan had called Greg telling him to meet her outside. When they pulled up, Greg was walking towards their direction outside of the apartment complex. She told Chris to make a U-turn. Greg had stopped walking and was standing there, so she told Chris to pull past him. When he did, he said she gets out of the van and starts shooting immediately, many times. Chris says that he didn't know that she was going to do that. She yelled at him, "What are you doing? Help me," because she's trying to get him to help her put Greg in the transport van.
Wow.
They took his body to the funeral home and put it in the cooler. Now, Greg's phone from 10-ish until it last connected at 11:07 that night was in the same location as Meagan and Chris's phones. So they're all tracking the same during that time. And there's a lot of talk of them going to that shopping center a couple of times throughout the night, which is apparently, like I said, where the Abuelos was. They both leave in the Explorer at around 12:14 a.m. They're back at the funeral home at 12:38. They're back at the shopping center at 1:17, which is where he said Meagan told him that they were in this together and he had to stay with her at her house that night. He even says that she threatened him. When they got to the house, Meagan's daughter Savannah was on the couch watching TV, and he said Meagan went to take a shower and he had to just sit there and try to make small talk like he hadn't just watched her mother kill her father. He apologized to Savannah when he was on the stand. Ugh.
How old was she then?
They said she's 19 now, so she would have been about 14 or 15 years old at the time. She also testified. She was actually the first to testify in the trial, and my heart broke for her. She was so visibly upset through the whole trial. She had to get up and leave when they were showing pictures of his body in the tarp. It's tough.
Well, yeah.
Chris and Meagan didn't end up getting a death call, they did end up getting a death call. So they ended up leaving again, and he took Meagan to the funeral home. She had to go back and get Greg's belongings off of him anyways. Like she said, she was like, "Oh, it's fine. I got to go get his stuff anyway. I left his keys and his wallet on his body." And FYI, when they found his keys, they were in the cushions of outside furniture at his apartment. So she just threw them in there. They say she threw them in there so her kids would find them. But either way, she had planted them just in the cushions, they just randomly fell out of his pocket. She also went back to the road, now that it was daylight, and got the shell casings off the side of the road. Their phones did put them back at the funeral home when she said she had got those keys and wallet. But there was also 2 embalmers there that they did not know about. This place mostly does cremation, so embalmers come in on a contract basis when needed, and they work on their own schedule. So Meagan and Chris were not aware that these 2 embalmers were going to be there. She told him that if Greg's body was discovered at that funeral home, that she would kill him. Talking to Chris. So the next day, he goes to Lowe's, and there is surveillance footage of him on October 3rd, and in his cart, you clearly see a tarp, a ratchet strap, a couple of cinder blocks, and he even got him a Pepsi Zero. So these are the only things that are in his cart.
So,
he didn't buy anything else.
Yeah.
He also took a phone call when he was in there. So if the receipt wasn't proof enough that he was there, if the surveillance wasn't proof enough, now his cell phone records are like, well, he took a call and you can see him on the surveillance, like talking on the phone.
Well, I'm pretty sure the video is enough.
Yeah.
But who worked at, how'd they have access to the funeral home?
Because she's a body transporter and he is a deputy coroner.
Oh.
Yeah.
So why didn't they just cremate him?
My question this whole time, that's what I said at the beginning. You would think they had the means to get away with this, but they chose to do it the most difficult, dumbest way.
I don't know. That right there, that, to me, that would have been
ideal.
I would have thought that would have been the way to do it. The way to be done. He would never be found again.
I love that they're this dumb, but at the same time, it's like, why are you this dumb?
That's crazy. Well, let's go to Lowe's, get a tarp, and take him back out of the cooler. And let's take him to the wherever. Where are they at?
They're in South Carolina.
Oh, let's take him to the bayou. It's not even South Carolina. But
we'll find one somewhere, damn it.
Take him to the swamp.
Yeah. So he's got this body disposal kit in his basket. And the way they knew he went to Lowe's was because the tarp that they used was only sold at Lowe's.
It was actually like the Lowe's brand.
Probably. So the police see the tarp and they go to the store and they are like, we need to see your receipts. They look through the receipts and there's one receipt with all the things. And they pull the footage and there's Chris's mug.
Wow.
Drinking his Pepsi Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Later in the day of the Lowe's trip, Chris and Meagan were together on a death call when Meagan told him she was actively miscarrying. They got back to the funeral home and she went into the bathroom for about 20 minutes. She then told Chris, quote, "Things are really working out for you. Greg's dead and I'm having a miscarriage," end quote. And she told him to get rid of the body that night. And so he did. At 12:30 a.m. on October 4th, Chris's phone leaves the funeral home. His vehicle is caught on a license plate reader heading in the direction of where Greg's body was found. At 1:10 a.m., he is in the area of the discovery site. And at 1:32 a.m., his phone shows him heading back towards home. So they literally followed him out and followed him back.
Never turns his phone off.
Not once.
Wow.
Plus, there's license plate readers that are just catching him on the highway.
Either way, he was going to get caught.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, big time. So the digital evidence really paints a picture here. Chris just provided details of how much weight, or Chris just provided details. So how much weight you give those details about him being threatened, about him being afraid of her, and him being completely unknowing of her plan to kill him. Like, is he really saying that, or is he just trying to save his own ass? Because,
and what does his wife think about all this?
His poor wife, she testified at trial too. The day she testified was actually her and Chris's 10th wedding anniversary.
Even better.
Just like to the heart. Because they are still married. So there you go with that. One thing they talk about through trial, so I guess that's what she thinks about it. They're still married. If that answers your question. One thing they talked about through trial was the hand of one is the hand of all. So in South Carolina, this is where if two or more people are together, acting together, assisting each other, and committing an offense, then the act of one is the act of all of them. Or the hand of one is the hand of all. So say you ask me for a ride to the bank and you go in while I wait in the car. You rob the bank and then we leave.
Well, yeah, you're a driver.
I'm an innocent party because I didn't know you robbed that bank. But if I had agreed to be your getaway driver, showing that I worked with you to do it, I basically robbed that bank too. So it's just like the case we just did where they were both tried for first-degree murder, even though only one of them pulled the trigger. But the hand of one is the hand of all. So you all go down. So since in this one, they don't know either who actually pulled the trigger, they don't necessarily have to prove who did, just like the last one. They were both there. They were both together through the entire thing. But I will say that Greg did have a .22 Ruger pistol. He's the only one, I think, that they said had a gun. That gun was never reported stolen, but it was also never found. So it's like, where'd the gun go? What they did find was a gun box for that .22 Ruger pistol at Meagan's house. So Meagan had it. Her defense team was a father and two sons, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've seen a lot of trials, and they were not great. They did press on the fact that the police were under the belief that Greg had been killed at the funeral home for the past 4 years before trial. They tested the transport van and the funeral home, but like I brought up at the beginning, that's tough. A lot of bodies were in those places, a lot of DNA. And it's not beneficial for them when they're trying to find one person's DNA in this sea of juices. I don't know the best way to say that. That's kind of gross. And it wasn't until December of 2024, when Chris stood up at his trial, that they learned that he was shot on the road outside of the complex. So they were thinking the whole time that they took him to the funeral home and killed him.
Yeah.
So now they're like, can you even believe him? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's tough.
Her lawyers kept asking the police and investigators about finding any blood at the complex. Did anybody hear any gunshots? And the answer is no to both. But we talked about all the other shit that they have. So the jury started their deliberations. A couple of hours later, the jury asked a question about the criteria for the hand of one, hand of all aspect of it. And the judge used the bank robbery description that I said and said that the driver would have to know and be part of the plan to rob the bank in order to be guilty of the crime. 20 minutes later, the jury had a verdict. And they found her guilty. So they're like, we just want to make sure we got this right? And he's like, yeah, you're right. And they're like, great, guilty. She was sentenced right away. This is something we talked about in some of our other cases where they'll prolong sentencing.
Oh, yeah.
Not this judge. He was like, guilty? Great. Here's your sentence. Have a great night. He was done. Greg's oldest son, Zachary, couldn't be in court because he now takes care of his younger siblings. But he wrote a letter saying 5 lives were completely shattered and she shows no remorse. He requested a maximum sentence, an eye for an eye. He said his dad lost his life, so she should lose hers. Savannah, who was in the courtroom, was too emotional to speak. So her statement was also read, and it was about all the lives that were ruined. She requested that the judge give her mom 50 years. Now, the state asked for life. They're like, just lock her up. And so the judge agreed and gave her life. From what I see in South Carolina, a life sentence for murder is life without parole. So.
Good.
Yeah.
But Chris probably won't get life.
No, his murder charge was removed because he cooperated, apparently. So his max for him pleading guilt for what he pled guilty to would give him possibly 20 years. So now that Meagan's trial is over, they have his sentencing scheduled for July 14th. So his was prolonged.
Yeah.
So that's coming up. Yeah, that is coming up. Actually, by the time you hear this, it's passed. Because we're doing bulk because Darren's surgery.
Yeah, because I'll be, I'm actually, this episode right here, I'll be in a couple weeks recovery. So
yeah, so we'll give you an update on this one when we get back to it after that happens, and that's where we are on this case.
Yep.
Do you have any final thoughts?
No, they pretty much got this one.
Yeah, nailed it.
So
I mean, if they hadn't, I would have been scared.
I was glad to see that he actually was like, "No, let's sentence her right now," instead of being like, "Oh, let's." Schedule it out for 10 years.
It was so fast. Like I'm watching the trial and then I'm getting ready to write down the sentencing date when they're going to schedule it for. And he's like, great, here you go, sentence. And I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah, there it is.
I like that. South Carolina be doing it. So if you like our content, tell us by hitting like, share, or subscribe. You can hit that notification bell and it'll give you a notification anytime a new episode drops.
And as always, don't forget to tell your friends because your friends deserve to see us too. And don't be rude about it. I mean, come on, tell your friends.
I did like that. I like that.
So anyway, until next time, we'll see you.
Bye.